episode 16 of The Call. Jason Thompson of SafeGuard Medical sits down and talks a little bit about new innovations in the field, SIMS bodies, and doing medical in a place where it's not safe.
All right, guys, thank you all for being here. First off, intro for the podcast is, this is The Call. Our podcast is The Call. We just kind of used it as the representation of how first responders and everybody gets the call to go to duty. And that's what we're representing, and obviously we're a part of the ALERRT program. The ALERRT program is a grant-funded, data-driven training program that comes out of Texas State University. We are sitting in the conference show at the vendor show at the conference. We're having our annual conference in Nashville, Tennessee, and we're getting to sit in the middle of it. So for those of y'all listening, if there's any background stuff, it's because we're actually sitting on the vendor show floor. So we appreciate you guys being here. Let's do some quick intros. My name's Eddie Molina. I am the Southeast Regional Manager for the ALERRT program. This is my partner, Casey.
Casey Williams, I'm the e-learning program manager here at ALERRT.
And Jason?
Jason Thompson with SafeGuard Medical.
Excellent. James?
James Preston, I'm a lieutenant with Harris County Constable Precinct 5 and also adjunct instructor for ALERRT.
Yeah, how long have you been an adjunct now?
7, 8 years.
Sweet. Well, one of these days you'll have to actually teach a class for us.
I know.
You stay busy, man. You stay busy with what you're doing and where you're at. Where'd you grow up at?
Houston, Texas, born and raised out there.
Yeah. What side of town are you from? Which school did you go to?
Spring Branch area is where I kind of grew up. Started off in Spring Branch and Memorial area, and kind of where I still work and patrol today.
Cool.
We're doing everything, so kind of stayed in the community where I was raised and kind of give back to the community.
That's awesome, and that's a big part of being a first responder. You know, that's what we're doing, is we're giving back to the community. Jason, how about you? Where'd you grow up at?
Actually, born and raised in Canton, Ohio.
Yeah.
Just south of Cleveland.
All right. What was your thing growing up? What was your sport?
So I loved wrestling. I played football, track and field. I was a mid-distance guy.
Okay.
I finished out with football. It was probably one of the best things ever.
Where'd you go after high school? Did you go into college? You go into the military? What did you do?
Actually, I turned 18 just before leaving for boot camp for the Navy.
Oh, awesome. What did you do in the Navy?
So I started out as a Stinger missile technician. So I did that, and then I was I was in the dive fair program, so I was on my way to actually working towards the EOD program, and then I got injured, and I ended up having to choose a different rate. And my time in the hospital, I ended up deciding I wanted to become a hospital corpsman. So that was my introduction to medicine.
To the medical side?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Cool. So hey, so we're talking about the medical side. Kind of give us a little bit of a background of what you're doing here. Why are you here at the conference?
So thank you. I'm actually I'm a senior clinical advisor for SafeGuard Medical. SafeGuard Medical is a new company to most people. Was actually founded last year through an acquisition of, I think the number's 7 right now, companies, and they were all merged together into a new brand called SafeGuard Medical. And I was actually with a company legacy called Combat Medical, which is one of the first acquisitions.
Cool, yeah, and it was kind of a big coming together for a lot of the old companies, and SafeGuard Medical is just awesome now. So let's cover a little bit about where you started the medical in the Navy.
Sure.
And how you got here. What was your experience like?
So when I first went through the hospital corpsman program, I was sent off to Field Medical Service School, so to learn how to be able to provide care in the field with the Marine Corps. And so I started doing that, but I got some advice early on, was get the clinicals, man. Don't get the get the clinicals and don't go to the field right away. So I took a number of rotations at different hospitals to try to get that experience under my belt. And while I was down in Jacksonville, Florida, was my first real experience with pre-hospital civilian medicine. I started to ride along with the rescue squads in the Jacksonville area, and so I brought all that, continued integrating that into everything I did while I was assigned to different Marine Corps units.
Okay.
And then also back at when I went back to Little Creek, I actually did some stuff with the Naval Special Warfare Center back there. So.
Well, that's good, and I think it's consistent across the board in any of the industries out there. There's nothing that really replaces experience. The experiences that we get ourselves into or find ourselves in the middle of, that's kind of a big thing. And that, I know that being with some top-notch groups like that helps us all out. James, what about you? What about your progress? After you left high school, you're a sports guy in high school. I know that.
Yeah. So as I was getting out of high school, trying to decide what I want to do in life, life throws you through curveballs and whatnot. Had my father pass away at an early age and whatnot, so I was either looking to go in the military or met some guys in law enforcement close by there in my community, and I was just kind of really impressed with, who they were, how they were as people, their character, and what they did every day on a daily basis. So even right out of high school, I started working for a local police department. Started off doing the communication side, doing dispatching and whatnot, and then as soon as I was old enough, I went to the academy. That gave me the ability to chase a dream there, so to speak, and still kind of stay home and take care of the family a little bit, make sure everybody was doing all right. So got out of the police academy and started working, and down in our area, we stay pretty busy, so life in the big city, all kinds of things happening every day.
Awesome. Which department are you working for?
Harris County Precinct 5 Constable's Office.
Awesome. So what's your position and what are your duties there?
Right now, I'm the lieutenant over the training division, so I kind of try to drive a lot of the in-service training that we do, everything from the medical, the firearms, and in-service stuff that we do. So what kind of pushed me into the medical side of things a little bit, teaching that was, as I got out on the street, make some of these calls involving, traumatic injuries or shootings or whatnot, light bulb kind of clicked on one day and said, hey, if that was me, what am I going to do about that? And if I wasn't happy with the responses I got, so I went and talked to folks that were cross-trained as EMTs that worked with us and said, hey guys, what are you going to do about this? And we're talking 20-something years ago, and they're like, well, we're just going to show up and direct pressure, elevate, and load and go with you, get you to hospital in 10 minutes. And I'm like, well, that sounds great, but what if the scene's not safe? Well, we're not going in there. So I'm like, well, I'm not really, what happens to me there? And they're, well, good luck. And I wasn't liking that answer, so I talked to the folks that I knew on the military side. They did a lot of trauma medicine stuff and said, hey, what do you guys do? And they said, well, we'll start throwing tourniquets on, packing wounds, doing this. I said, okay, well, what if it's not a safe place that's where we work every day? I'm like, okay, tell me more. So I kind of ended up putting the cart before the horse a little bit. Did some training with folks on tactical combat casualty care at the time. Pushed that all the way into doing, having the opportunity to fortunately go to even some live tissue labs and things like that. Then I came back and got certified as an EMT on the civilian side, and God bless those guys. I found out I was more policeman than I was EMS, but I like I did enjoy the trauma. And so as it evolved and we started programs like the Tactical Emergency Casualty Care, started trying to push that in my own organization.
Yeah, so those are big, once again, experiences. You talked about the live tissue labs, and man, I tell you what, if you all are in this industry, anybody's watching, I'm sure you all are in this industry, if you get the opportunity to go to a live tissue lab or a cadaver lab, there's nothing that replaces that experience aside from actually operational experience. But yeah, those things that's probably the best learning tools that I've been through, and I've learned a lot from it. So, we know where y'all came from, what y'all's background is. So tell me a little bit about Safeguard Medical, what y'all brought, because y'all brought some new stuff out this week.
Sure. So I have the one. I'm going to start with this from my perspective from combat medical, right? So while as a combat medical, we really did everything, really based off of March pneumonic, so massive hemorrhage, airway, respiration, circulation, and then head and hypothermia. And we had a very unique color coding system at that point, that we thought was pretty, novel and innovative. So it was a red, green, blue, a gray, and then purple. But we just kept seeing all these different gaps. We had really good stuff, but there were so many things I was just chomping at the bit. And then, came December 19, January 20. I'm like, start hearing these rumors, and I had no idea what was in store. But yeah, so we now have through the acquisition of Water Gel, we have the best breeds of burn first aid. We have through Prometheus Medical in the UK. We've got this incredible line of stuff that's been serving the European market for space and elsewhere internationally for a long time. There was also the, oh my goodness, so SimBodies now is our mannequin line. So we have full bodies, we have everything else, and we have arrangement with a company called Maxify for true bodies. So that's reanimated cadaveric tissue or reperfused cadavers. So it's RTT versus, so reanimated tissue training versus your LTT, which you were talking about earlier, the live tissue training.
Right.
So, there's this move to try to get away from the LTT just, from a matter of just, humanity, right?
Sure.
We're really trying to do our best. And so what we did was we actually figured out how we're, to reperfuse these cadavers. So we have some of that, but we don't have a representation of that here at this conference. But we do have our SimBodies here. And then a company called Persis was acquired, and then H&H. So we have, it's just amazing what we got over there. So we have our SimBodies, we have 3 SimBodies mannequins, adults. We have our task trainers, and then we've got the full complement of everything from, all representing our total color-coded systems. So.
Cool. So what makes a SimBody? So I saw that y'all have SimBodies laid up on all your gurneys over there,
Yeah.
and so it's really cool because you have them all hooked up. It seems like y'all have a blood system pumping through them, and you're giving actual problems for the people that are going hands-on. You're giving
Sure.
them problems to solve. Now, those of us who have been through medical training here and there's always that, that obstacle. How do we make it more realistic? And I've done the whole thing where we take a big chunk of meat and
Sure.
we do just about anything you can figure it out. But those are pretty cool. It's like a whole body there you all have put together.
Yeah, they're amazing. We a little side story. We just did some urban search and rescue training down in Florida in May. Well, not just, but it seems like yesterday. But it was in May, and we were doing some pile work, and it was dusk. We were bringing the survivors off the pile, and there was a mixture of mannequins and role players. And as they're bringing them out to the docks, for evaluation, Doc wasn't sure that this guy was off script because he wasn't responding. So they weren't sure whether they had a real world, which is actually pretty cool. And it actually ended up being a mannequin.
Wow.
Just wasn't responding to him, obviously, because mannequins don't respond.
Yeah.
So at least in this case, right?
Right,
so,
exactly.
But yeah, so they're amazing. I mean, they're anatomically correct. They're casted off of cadavers. They have real hair. They have self-sealing silicone composition, ceramic teeth, ceramic jaws, real airways. I mean, you look into the airway, you cannot tell the difference.
That's pretty cool. So you kind of answered one of the questions I was going to ask you. Where are they taking your all's mannequins to train with? And if they're putting them up on the side of a mountain, that sounds like it's more realistic training. And if you have that kind of a tool, like a SimBody, to be able to take out there and place in a simulated crash or wherever.
Sure, absolutely.
Where else have you heard people taking your bodies out to?
So right now in North America, we haven't had a lot of experience with the SimBodies yet because there's only a few organizations that have had the pleasure of being able to buy them so far. But working with our European partners and understanding where the SimBodies have been placed, the Brits have been using these things everywhere, and it's so I mean they're using them in any type of mass casualty situations or any type of evacuation, hostage rescue, you name it. They can repeat these cycles over and over and over again, and not have to worry about a role player actually suffering a real world incident. And they can reset and do it again. They don't have to worry about fatigue and role players.
They just go and rinse this thing off and get it set for the next go.
Exactly, and they can change out the scenarios over there. Anybody who's really good in moulage, is going to really love these things. It takes the moulage really well. You can change it so you can change the whole scenario very quickly with a little creativity. So
Well, okay, and so that's kind of like what we're looking for is like, we're looking for more advanced training because the training is where all the progress gets made. And we've talked about that. Casey and I talk about this all the time at work. It's like it's not about so much about what we're teaching, because what we're teaching is still the same, but how we're teaching it and who we're teaching or who we have teaching it makes a big difference. So the guys with experience, when you create a new tool, it has to be better than the last thing.
Sure.
So some of the other stuff that you all brought out here was just kind of a fix me up of what we had in the past. And so that's some of how you guys came together, right? So he took some of your all's gear and actually put it through the ringer.
Yep.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about that test that y'all did?
Sure. Well, I mean, we've probably been talking on and off, met at conferences years ago. And fortunately, a lot of the companies they acquired, I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to use a lot of those products doing what I do on the training side a lot. So I was kind of familiar with things. And then the opportunity came within my organization where we've been pushing this concept of first responders doing medical and having the equipment with them. So when they opened up some money for us to be able to purchase things, given our relationship that we already had talking about things at conferences, I reached out to them to see about using the equipment that they have with TMT tourniquets and some of their RTF bags and some of the blowout kits that they had. So I was probably carrying one of these 6 to 8 months, maybe a year, before we looked at purchasing for the department, testing them, and just kind of took it start to finish from how it showed up from them and said, where does it work, where does it fail? I tried to make it as deputy resistant as I could so that they wouldn't have any issues on the field if they had to use this on demand and under stress. So as we started going through things, we found a few suggestions. So I gave them a report on feedback of here's some things I would improve on, maybe the way we were packaging information. One of the things we found is what they were putting in the cards sometimes would give us a hang up on deploying the kit and trying to make it a little simpler to use. We had a set of March cards in there that got a wave after you've been carrying them, sitting on them, using them for a month or so. That didn't come that way, but through using it in the real world, reshaped the card and made it difficult for the thing to open up.
Sure, and for the people listening, the March cards, basically what that is, it's kind of like an instruction card or an instruction manual for what we're going to do during the middle of an injury, how we're going to address the wounded, how we're going to address the injured person, and these are kind of instruction cards that we'll hand out to officers all across the country, just to step by step follow this process type of deal. And you all had those things packaged inside one of your kits, and it just, what you're saying is it kind of got bent up or folded or warped to where it was hard to pull out. So you guys stayed connected, you guys tested it out, and that's a big thing, is to be able to test out new gear. So one of the things I can say for sure about SafeGuard and your guys, especially you, it's that you guys respond. And it's like all of the vendors that come to our shows, we've always had great relationships with them, but you guys respond like quickly. Hey, this is what we need, or hey, can we borrow some of this? And you guys always show up. So how did this connection help you guys on the vendor side itself?
Well, I have to say, specifically to James, like, it's when you're dealing with a customer, right? It's from my perspective, I have that one-on-one relationship with them all the time. But when you're talking about, very complex layers of quality assurance, solutions engineers, designers, all these research and development folks, they don't really understand. In some cases, it's tough for them to appreciate what the customer's actually going through. And a lot of times, a customer will not take, as soon as something happens or is reported to them, a lot of times they won't even take the time to really investigate it, to really look at it. It's just like, hey, one of my guys, or we don't even get that. It's like, your product did this, and it's unacceptable. And it's like, well, can you show me pictures of the product? Oh, I haven't even seen it. Well, so how did you find this information out? And it's like, you spend all this time to end up finding out there really wasn't a problem, or it was a lot of drama.
User error.
Or in most instances, thankfully, user error or just pure training or lack thereof. And so I want to just kind of give a huge nod. James, he has some back and forth on this, some stuff that he experienced. I'm like, hey, can you document this stuff? So he didn't just document it. He literally puts this report together. He actually did my job for me without even realizing it. But so that led for me to be able to help really show, what a true customer engagement is like, especially when you have a customer who's invested in your success, right? And I think that's huge. And so from that, we were able to we developed a model that we kind of use now of the kind of things that we saw from him that, wow, I wouldn't have asked that, and it needed him to get a tape measure and measure things out for us, right? It's like, it's a lot to ask of somebody who's got a really busy schedule. Yeah. But he took the time, but that helps accelerate this stuff. You're not talking about months now. You're talking about being able to react, within a day or a couple days.
Yeah, we have a person or a superhero that we talk about at work, the good idea fairy. Everybody has these great ideas, but nobody ever sits down to follow through and actually talk about what makes this idea work or what would make the idea work. And those interactions between guys out in the field and guys that are trying to produce the product, I mean, that's a big bridge to get, a big gap to bridge rather. So it's like you've got to be able to take time to put that together, and having somebody that's willing to do it helps a lot.
I'll tell you, their communication's been great, and their customer support has been great, because even from the get-go, even before we were looking at buying anything and just having discussions about stuff, but once I started kind of teeing in the products, and I'd bring something to their attention, it wasn't like, okay, we'll take that under advisement. They literally came down and flew down and sell me, went to lunch, had discussions about it. I went through and showed them, here's where I'm having problems with tourniquet holders, here's what I would change and modify, and then we're getting phone calls and doing group meetings between engineers and designers, talking about here's where it works, here's what we need to tweak and make this better, what we need to change, and they've been very receptive. And that's the thing is, like, I just walked into the conference today and we started talking, and he's giving me the feedback based on here's what you told us and here's what we're doing about it, and that's huge. I mean, you usually don't get to have that follow through with folks, because there's a lot of these companies that we've worked with or used products for years, and guys are out there staking their lives on this stuff. And the goal here, for us isn't making money, but saving lives and having something that we can depend on when we're out there on the field. And having a company that's going to stand behind their products and be receptive to the customer base and actually make changes and improvements and get it out to market quickly, that's amazing.
Well, the communication cycle seems to be the thing that we preach about the most. And once a communication cycle breaks, it makes things difficult. But when you have a good communication loop going, it always makes things grow and get better. So talk a little bit about how the hows and the whys and all that stuff. And we talked a little bit about the whats. But what's next for Safeguard Medical? What do y'all have coming out?
Well, we have the full SimBodies national North American launch is coming up. So, like I said, we only have a few customers in North America at this time, simply because we unofficially sold them just to kind of get an idea of what's going on, and feedback here in the States. So that's huge coming down the pike. We also are working on, some people have been following us on it's called a junctional hemorrhage control plate. The junctional hemorrhage control plate was designed to actually clip into the back of the tactical mechanical tourniquet, the TMT. And so it allows you to do unilateral inguinal junctional control. And so it's going to be known, as I understand it now, probably telling too much, but as it's going through the processes now, I understand it's going to be called the hemorrhage control plate. We're not using the term junctional, because we're also going to be using it for circumferential compression and things like that. But I would say that I probably spend 10% of my life right now just fielding conversations about, like, when is this thing happening? And we have agencies literally that are waiting for the transition into the TMT, simply just based off of the hemorrhage control plate's arrival. So, because that changes the game significantly. And hemorrhage control is in a junctional setting, a junctional application is tough.
Sure. And
so I mean, outside of that, we've got a really new device, a cool device called the Full Stop. I'm challenged internally a lot because there's people that just love the ratchets and love the windlasses. But the potential elastic energy, I really like that. I mean, people love the SWAT T. But this takes on the kind of SWAT T kind of mentality, but yet does it has a hook and loop that actually preserves the forward motion, where the SWAT tee, if you let go, it kind of just snaps back,
Right.
and hook and loop grabs, which is great. So we started to get it. We're looking more now towards that auto transfusion, which is a lot of people aren't following that too. It's ATT. So there's a lot to come on that. So anyway, we just have a lot in the pipeline.
That's
In
great.
the pipeline where it's really an exciting time, and the amount of support that we have from the top down in the company is incredible. And it's not like it wasn't in Combat Medical, but it's just the organization's solid.
That's awesome.
Solid.
I'm
Solid.
glad to hear that. When you have people that are talking that highly of their higher ups, that speaks a lot. It speaks volumes. We can't thank you guys enough for being here and doing this. I'm looking forward to getting my hands on those new tools and actually get them play with them and seeing the stops that they make. So I'm assuming that people can go to your all's website and
Yep.
see what you all have out there and maybe see videos or something. Do you guys do social?
Yeah. So we do, and I hope you're not going to ask me what the hashtags are because I don't know all that stuff. But you can find us on Instagram. You can find us on LinkedIn. You can find us on Facebook. You can safeguardmedical.com is our primary platform.
Sure.
All of the legacy companies that were acquired still are maintaining their own URL, so you can go in there and see a lot of stuff because it's still transitional. The Persis Medical stuff is not fully integrated into Safeguard Medical yet, so you can still go to Persis Medical's website to see everything. But we're probably about 6 months to see everything kind of transition over to the new site. You can follow us. Just search us Safeguard Medical, and we'll show up. We'll show up right away.
So I want to close out in a little bit, but I want to ask one more thing on your side, James. You have been very progressive with the training in your department.
Yes.
What are some of the cool feedback things that you've gotten from your partners out there on the streets when you started pushing this kind of medical training, especially their gear and just the stuff that you've learned through ALERRT?
Yeah.
What's some of the good situations or responses that you've had? Because there's always that one that, man, what you taught me, it was important.
It didn't take us long. I mean, literally, we did a couple of pilot classes for some of the folks that are going to help teach and roll these things out with us. But even after the first class that we taught, within one shift, guys showed up and had to do a medical call with somebody who was stabbed through the chest, punctured heart. And, the next morning I had folks lining up at my door and sending emails going, man, thank you for everything that you taught us in the class. We applied every little bit of that. But it really hammered home the lessons for folks, because a lot of times we'll start the discussion with how much trauma gear do you actually carry on your person. A lot of folks will give us, hey, I got a tourniquet or nothing, or it's all in the car. And I've been preaching to them, if anything has shown us from all our folks downrange that are going out and responding to these incidences, we don't carry enough trauma kit on ourselves.
Sure.
And because if you have a mass casualty event, you're going to need more than just a tourniquet. And so it's putting them on their body, having them readily available in a timeless life situation when they need it. So usually by the time we start that discussion to the time they leave class, it's like, here's why you need to have this with you. Love carrying the additional gear in the car, guys, but you need to have it on your person. And so, the lessons, we've had several saves with this just in the couple of years that we've been running this program. So we know it's saving lives being out there. And the fact that they're willing to keep improving a product and give us something. I mean, first responders' job's challenging enough out there in the field, and having good equipment that they can depend on that's not going to fail them in a critical moment is huge. So that's been great response, from Safeguard, honestly.
That's awesome to hear.
We appreciate the support.
So, Jason, I'm going to give you the floor to close it out. Is there anything that we haven't talked about yet that you want to bring up?
Well, I mean, I just can't hit on more. I mean, just everything that James has done. You find. I mean, obviously, we want you guys to do business with us. But you really need to find somebody that you can work with. And somebody's going to listen to you. I mean, it's life changing. A lot of times, you have the insight in the field you think is really valuable, but when it comes to real estate on a belt, real estate on a vest, and understanding, a small waste versus a large waste. Everybody has this assumption that, there's just all this real estate, and they have no idea on what's competing for that residency on that belt and on that plate carrier. Relationship is everything. and again, I can't stress enough about having stuff on your person. There is no excuse anymore. There is no excuse anymore for not having stuff on your person at all times. The situations are getting real. I mean, very real from a matter of, dealing with stuff in the hostility in the public places, the impulsivity of people.
Right.
Whether it's motor vehicle stuff, the stuff you come across, it seems like, I never knew there were red Jeeps out there until I bought a red Jeep. It's
Yep.
like as soon as you get that training and stuff, it's like almost immediately you realize, like, holy smokes, because you start to look for it and you see it. And a lot of times I think a lot of people naturally just avoid it because they're not
Right.
prepared. You start to see people in need and being able to, what that feeling is like to try to save a life and be involved in somebody's future. But outside of that, I'm really excited about where we're going. I encourage everyone to really start paying attention to burn first aid. It's highly neglected. We're dealing with some serious situations out right now. Molotov cocktails we're dealing with, you name it. We have to be prepared. Fire is a weapon. I mean, we cannot stress this enough. And being a sheriff's deputy and showing up on a place, and it's 45 minutes before people are going to get there, and you just kick the door in, drag these people out, and you're watching them just suffer in agony, right? You save their lives, but now you just got to deal with that. That's something that we talk about why suicide levels are as they are. Those kind of things are really, really hard to get over. So be prepared to be able to manage your burns, and focus hard on your whole blood programs and your fluid warming. Those are the three things. If you could do something for me, it's get involved in a blood program. If you're not warming fluids already, start warming fluids. And if you do not have burn care as part of your response plan, get it now. Get it now and train on it and understand conversion, understand progression, understand all those kind of things, and educate your receiving facility, because most cases they don't even know really what they want to see. So have those conversations. They're not hard. They're not hard.
No, we appreciate that, man. All the stuff you bring to us is always good information and good knowledge, and obviously good tools. Casey?
I got nothing else. Final thoughts from anybody?
All right. Well, then let's close it out. You want to give them the website? You want to give them all that stuff?
Hey, thanks for listening and/or watching and listening. You can visit us at ALERRT.org. That's ALERRT.org. For questions, comments, concerns about the podcast, email us at thecall@alert.org. And with that, we are out. Fade to black.
Thanks, boys.
Thank
That
you
was
so
awesome.
much. That was
Appreciate
cool. Yeah.
Good times.
Sit down here.
Yeah.